The question is always, why do you homeschool? But I don't think that's the one that we should be asking. It's not enough to know why we do it. We need to know why we keep doing it day after day after day. The timing of this collab is perfect because as I'm taping this, my daughter is driving back to college for her second semester. And over break, we had some talks about this and about homeschooling in general and where that's led her. We also have a big year ahead as a military family. And so this topic has really been kind of going in my brain. Now, when you're with my video, you're going to click on the collaboration playlist down there to check out the videos hosted by Living with Eve, as well as many other homeschool moms. We all have a reason that we homeschool. Maybe your kiddo was being bullied. Maybe they're failing, or the other end, they were excelling beyond what school could provide for them. Maybe 2020 was your impetus. Maybe, like me, your kindergartner was going to end up in 3 elementary schools as a kindergartner, and you didn't want that. But things change, and we change, and our options change. You could have moved, and so the school could be better, or your area got redistricted, and your kiddo would end up in another school. 2020's over. All kinds of reasons your kindergartner is no longer going to be in 3 different schools. We all have the reasons why we started, but the things change. So why do you keep homeschooling? Because when we identify why we keep at it, that is what we can use to guide our days and our weeks. And it gives us something to focus on as we're creating a homeschool that we love. And that's something we're going to talk a lot about here at the Homeschool Breakroom in 2023. So, no time like the present to start. One of the reasons why we keep homeschooling is because I want my kiddos to have an enjoyment of learning and to not be embarrassed by that. In the younger years, as kids are learning to read and all that, that's exciting. There's no embarrassment about that. But then they get to be older elementary and middle school, and sometimes being excited about learning about something in history or science isn't received well among your peers. And sometimes it's just not enjoyable in the strict structure of a classroom. Like, there are things they have to do, there are tests they have to prepare you for, and it can kind of suck the enjoyment out of learning. So, since that's one of our goals, is so my kiddos can grow up learning that it's okay to enjoy learning. It means we end up doing a lot of interest-led learning, for one thing. When my daughter was in 10th grade for U.S. history, the book I chose for her was U.S. History Detective. Fantastic book by Critical Thinking Company. I've got a video about it. And so that was a great book for her. Very critical thinking, logic, piecing things together. Now, she was also really enjoying expanding her musical tastes. And so I had found a playlist of top 100 American songs from the 20th century or something like that. I forget the exact title. I found that had articles that went with it. So we included those. She was really into art, so we included American art into it. And it was something that she really looked forward to because it was something that was being led by her interests. And she was excited to share with me the things that she was learning in all of this. My middle kiddo, Ben, loves plants. Well, as a 14-year-old boy in a public school, is that going to get him some looks? Probably, frankly. And now in college, Elizabeth is going out of her way to pick classes that fit her requirements, but that are ones that are specific to her interests. Not just the easiest one to do to fulfill the requirement or the one with the easiest teacher, but ones that actually excite her. And watching her last semester share with me all the things she was learning and that excitement was so cool. I loved it. My heart grew 3 sizes, as the Grinch would say. And before going any further, I'd love to know why you started homeschooling or why you keep homeschooling. And if you haven't given that second question some thought, give it some and come back and let me know down there. In the past, a flexible schedule was huge. As a military family, my husband was gone a lot, and when he was home, we wanted to be able to be home with him. Before, about 10 years ago, he was deploying to Afghanistan, and they left right before Christmas, like days. And so that meant that their block leave, where everybody gets off, was in October. Well, the families who were public school weren't able to take much of that time because it didn't fall over their break. They had a couple days off with the school year, but for the most part, like those 2 weeks, they didn't get to do anything. We got to travel the Southwest, Disneyland, Grand Canyon, places in between. So a flexible schedule was huge. It also meant that our checklist, our to-do list, was more do the next thing rather than do this on this day at this time. Another reason why we homeschool is to learn how to learn and not just the facts. It means that we de-emphasize like rote learning. I don't ask my kids questions about dates very often or such, because those facts are important to know. But on a grander scale, knowing how to learn is far more important, because everything they want to know, they can find on their phone, right? Like, it is, all that knowledge is literally a few, well, what do we call that? A few taps away? I don't know. And so they can find that information. But how do they find the information? How do they know what resources to look for? How to find good ones? How do they know how their brain really works so that they can know what to do? For example, something I talk with my kids a lot about is with math. When you are working on a math problem, for example, and you stop, you can't figure it out, you're frustrated, slam the book shut. Your brain is continuing to work on how to solve that problem. Maybe it'll figure it out before you come back to math, maybe not. But by the time you come back and do it the next day, it's already been working. And so it's sometimes so much easier than you're like, oh, right, of course. Why didn't that occur to me before? Well, because your brain needed more time. How many times are you looking for something, miss some misplaced paper, you give up, you're out at the grocery store, and then all of a sudden you remember where it is? It's because your brain's still working on it. Your brain wants to close those loops. It doesn't want open things. And I teach that starting when they were young. And so as they get older, they know that. They've heard me say it a bazillion times. And so it's easier for them to say, okay, I'm going to close this up right now, use my good brain power for something else, and I'll come back to that when my brain's had time. Those kind of little things are huge for the long term, because they've got all the information they want on their phone. Anything they could possibly want to know is on here. But how do you learn and how do you find that information? What curriculum do you use is probably one of the most common questions that you're going to hear, right? But when you have kiddos with lots of needs that don't fit into a regular homeschool or regular public school, well, that question gets really dicey. Not in the way of like, you're going to be offensive, but like, well, it depends what subject and which kiddo, right? And of course that's simplifying it. I know before I even knew we had different needs, we didn't use one curriculum, but you know what I mean here. When we have kiddos who have lots of needs, which mine do, in various ways, it means that we have to choose resources for each individual kiddo. And so knowing that that's one of the reasons why we homeschool, it means that I put more care than I think I would otherwise into choosing things. Because I want to choose curriculum that interests them, meets the way they best learn, but also works on those skills that aren't as good and to help bring them up. For college, it means that by this point, Elizabeth has learned lots of tricks that work for her. And it also means that she has learned that she has to keep trying sometimes. And that even if something used to work, it might not work now. So it has helped her to become an effective studier because she knows how to divide up her brain power. She knows which tricks are going to work for different subjects, kind of what order she needs to study in. All of those kind of things she's learned because we've had an emphasis on helping each kiddo with their individual needs. Another reason we homeschool is because I just really enjoy hanging out with them. I enjoy being with my kiddos, and I want them to enjoy that as well. And so that means, one, I try to keep things really light, which means Mama has to be in control of herself. I set the stage for how they respond when I'm trying to help them. I set the stage for setting the tone. I set the stage for how they should view themselves when they make a mistake by how I respond. And that's a lot of work on me. But it's something that's important because that's one of the reasons we homeschool and why we keep homeschooling, so that we can have this enjoyable time together. It means we laugh a lot. It means that sometimes we do subjects that some people think, because it's something we enjoy. We do a lot of Disney-led learning. For example, right now we are doing a Pirates unit. Well, it's inspired by Pirates of the Caribbean, depends on who you ask. But we are learning about the history of pirates. We've done geography. We've learned about what else is going on in the world during the golden age of piracy, etc. So, yeah, the Disney's what's inspired us, but, it's a bigger thing. But because we enjoy that, we find time to incorporate it in our days. Now go check out the collaboration playlist over there. Tell them the Homeschool Breakroom sent you, and I will see you in the comments.